Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, all praises, honor, and glory be unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders at Great Millstone who taught us his truth and who rule well. Peace and love, salutations and mercy be unto the hopeful elect. Back again with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, but the Zada's lesson be edifying unto you hopeful elect. You Akim, if you Akwatim that believe in Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai with your whole heart, mind, body, and soul, and that are waiting for these last and final prophecies to happen in the earth, and the return of our Lord and Savior Yahweh Shai, who's coming to redeem the elect of the nation of Israel from the four corners of the earth where they are scattered. See, the children of Israel have been scattered into their enemies' lands, and amongst their enemies, they have adopted the way, the lifestyle, the custom, all right, of their enemies, who has been oppressing them. All right, you haven't followed your own way, all right, because you discontinued from that. A quick example can be given within the definition within the book of Matthew, the 18th chapter, and going down to about, I believe that's the 16th or 17th verse. It says, "But if he will not hear thee, then take to thee one or two more. In the mouth of two or three witnesses, every word may be established. And if he should neglect to hear them, all right, tell it unto the church. And if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican." Now, when you go into the interlinear and you go into the word heathen, the word there is ethnikos, all right, ethnikos. And it says adapted to the genius or customs of a people, peculiar to a people, national. So what our people have done is they have adapted to the ways, all right, the genius, the mindset, of these Edomite nations whom they have succumbed to, via slavery, all right, being oppressed. The word for genius, it says exceptional, intellectual, or creative power or other natural ability. A person who is exceptionally intelligent or creative, either generally or in some particular respect. All right. So what happened was the children of Israel have adopted the mindset, the philosophy, the way of life of those that have oppressed them. All right. And this is the same thing that went on, all right, in 2,000 years ago and even before that, And that's the reason why you got scriptures like James 1:1. James, a servant of the Most High, Yahweh, and of our Lord Yahweh Shai Mashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. Now, going from there to 1 Peter 1:1, it says, Peter, an apostle of Yahweh Shai, to the strangers scattered abroad throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, Bithynia, elect according to the foreknowledge of the Yahweh the Father, through sanctification of the Spirit and obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Yahweh Shai Mashiach, grace unto you and peace be multiplied. So these strangers that were scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia are the 12 tribes of Israel that were scattered amongst the heathen and that were aliens in their mind, all right, strangers from the commonwealth of Israel. The book of Ephesians, all right, the second chapter, and going down to the 11th verse. Wherefore remember that ye being in times past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision of the flesh made by hands. So there's no way that a person can be a Gentile and not be a Gentile anymore. All right. Our people were looked at as heathen because they adapted to the genus, the custom, the way of life of the Gentiles, of the heathen. All right. Even going to the brink of leaving themselves uncircumcised, with circumcision was a big deal amongst our people. And ultimately, their hearts were uncircumcised. All right. I'm going to come back to this Ephesians, but I want to go over to the book of Corinthians. All right. The book of 1 Corinthians 12:2. Ye know that ye were Gentiles carried about to these dumb idols, even as ye were led. So there's no way that a person can change their nationality. There's no way that a person can change their national origin. But what a person can do, all right, a person can adapt to the genus, the mind state, all right, the customs of another nation, of another people. And therefore, by their own people, they'll be looked at as strangers. So this is what happened to the Israelite foreigners in old times. Back in Ephesians 2:12, it says that at that time ye were without Yahushua, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenant of promises, having no hope and without Yahweh in the world. All right, because in their way of life and in their minds and the way that they were carrying themselves, all right, they were disassociated from their people. They were cast off from their people. So therefore, they didn't have the same rights as an Israelite in the land of Israel will have within their land. All right. They didn't have any rights to the land or to the covenants of promise. But through Yahushua, all right, we're being brought back into this new covenant. All right. And are given rights again to be fellow citizens, all right, of the nation of Israel. Ephesians 2:13. But now is Yahushua, all right, now in Yahushua, ye who sometimes were afar off are made nigh by the blood of Yahushua. All right, for he is our peace, who have made both one and have broken down the middle wall of partition between us. So he's destroying that enmity in the flesh. All right, that's separating the northern and the southern kingdom, or that's separating Israelite foreigners, all right, from their nation. Having abolished in the flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, for to make in himself of twain one new man, so making peace. Now, this doesn't mean that he destroyed the law. All right. This doesn't mean that he destroyed the law, but there's a particular law in regards to, the law of being circumcised, which separated our people that were uncircumcised, from their nation. Now, in the kingdom of heaven, we will keep all of the laws, statutes, and commandments perfectly, all right, because they're going to be in our inward parts. But the point of this is to show that how back then our people adapted to the lifestyles, the manner, the custom, the way of thinking, all right, the way of life, all right, of the heathens. And the same thing is going on today. And an example of that could be found within the situation with the actor Michael B. Jordan, all right, who was accused of cultural appropriation. Now, what is cultural appropriation? Cultural appropriation is defined according to Google as, and I'm just waiting for it to load up, Salakia, that is moving so slowly, but it's defined as the unacknowledged or inappropriate adoption of the customs, practices, ideas, etc. of one people or society by members of another, and typically more dominant people or society. So ultimately, are you people that are which you're Israelites, you people that are in Trinidad and in Tobago, are you ultimately should be accused of cultural appropriation, because you have adapted to or stolen the way of life of Esau Edom. That's not your way of life, man. That's not your French isn't your language. All right. Creole isn't your language, and any other language that you're speaking are modernly. All right. We spoke Hebrew. All right. We are the Hebrew Israelites. You people that are on the island of Trinidad or the islands of Trinidad and Tobago, you are actually Israelites. Now, to read a little bit of this article, it says actor Michael B. Jordan apologized on Tuesday and vowed to rectify the situation after being accused by Nicki Minaj and others of a cultural appropriating the name of a Caribbean carnival party for his new rum brand. It says Jordan, who starred as the villain Eric Killmonger in the 2018 Marvel movie, Black Panther announced his new rum brand this past weekend, naming it after the annual Caribbean street party J Avort, which originated in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the history behind what happened, the reason that they adopted the name J Avort for that particular carnival, which you're out there getting drunk, you're drinking rum, you're partying. So what's the difference? What's the difference? All right, in another situation that's going on right now, you have IKEA in Atlanta, which is under fire because on their menu for the June 19th, Juneteenth celebration, they offer Negroes watermelon, chicken, I believe it was greens, yams, things that you eat anyways, all right, for your celebration and for your holidays, man. All right, which is something that you adapted to or something that you adopted. All right, that wasn't our menu. That's not on the dietary menu when you go through the list, so-called soul food. All right, that is. All right, even though we dealt with chicken, and things like that. But soul food wasn't on the dietary menu when you go in the scriptures. So that's not a part of our culture. All right, a lot of these different ways and traditions that Jake have are things that they were forced to adapt to or forced to adopt as a way of life of their own, which all majority of them have their root within slavery. All right, it's time for you to put off this confusion and come back into the true mind state, all right, and not being aliens in your mind, all right, from the Most High Heavenly Father, or because you're following the way of Esau Edom. A lot of these cultures that you have created or was created because of the devil. It's not our culture, all right? Jehovot, according to Wikipedia, is a large street party held annually and part of Carnival and in many Caribbean islands, primarily in the Lesser Antilles, and in areas where Caribbean people have immigrated. Jehovot is likely a Gallanization of Jehovah, Jehovah, whatever, however you say that. Jehovot is the standard French, the Antillean Creole French term meaning dawn or daybreak. Because in history, you had slave owners that were French who moved from other Caribbean, islands to Trinidad and Tobago. And on that particular island or those particular islands, there was a fire that broke out, on a sugarcane field. And the slaves were forced to go and gather the remaining sugarcane in the midst of the fire that was going on. All right. And as it was going on, their slave owners mocked them, all right, and laughed at them, all right, which is wicked as hell. But once they were released, or emancipated from slavery, they began to use the name, because this is something, or Jehovot, I believe that was something that the slave masters would use to mock the slaves. But once they were released, the slaves used, that particular name, all right, to mock the slave owners, which we're going to have our day. All right. When the like it states within the scriptures, those that were the slaves are going to mock the slave masters, man. All right. The book of Amos, the 9th chapter in verse 13, it says, "Behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that the plowman should overtake the reaper and the treader of grapes, him that soweth seed, and the mountains shall drop sweet wine, and the hills shall melt." All right, we are the plowmen. All right, we are the workmen. We are the laborers, and the reapers are the rich elite banking families who are still in control over the earth. So we're still slaves within this system, man. And that's the reason why the scripture says this, because eventually this is going to happen. The book of Job 20 and 22. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, and every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. Now, when you go into that word wicked within the Hebrew, the word, the definition means laborer. All right. So this doesn't actually mean wicked. All right. It means a laborer. So all of the hands of the laborers are going to be upon him. All right. But this time hasn't come yet. All right. You're still in captivity. So in regards to Jehovah, all right, in Trinidad and Tobago, you have Creole speaking Jakes. You have Creole speaking Israelites or Trinidadians, who speak French only because the French came from other Caribbean islands to Trinidad, and they brought their slaves with them. And of course, they stripped their slaves of their language that they spoke, which was the Hebrew language, and gave them French. So the whole Caribbean, festival of Jehovah, that name or that language isn't even your own language. It's not your language. Ultimately, you are Israelites. All right, and it's time for you to shake yourselves from the dust, man. It's time for you to put off confusion and come back to the realization of who you are, for the few that will be allowed to do so. Because ultimately, all of you want. And you're going to catch judgment because you refuse to let go of, those things that you have adapted to, and to come back to your true way of life. All right, which you've adapted to, Catholicism. All right, because I believe that there's a Catholicism that's going on over there. And then if it's not Catholicism, then you have sources or forms of witchcraft, all right, that you're into, or Christianity, or any other such thing that isn't associated with being an Israelite. The scripture say in Jeremiah 17 and 4, it says, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knewest not. For ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. So we discontinue from our culture. All right. When you go into a heritage, yes, a heritage can be a possession in regards to land, but it's also a way of life. It's also customs. It's also this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So we discontinue from that. And now, being in the midst of our enemies, in the midst of our oppressors, what have we done? We have chosen their way of life. And some of us have came out of that idea, out of that mind state, out of that philosophy, out of their customs. But some of you refuse to let them go. You love them. Proverbs, the 3rd chapter, verse 31. Envy not the oppressor and choose none of his ways. And you have chosen the ways of Esau Edom, all right, which are the ways that Yahweh hates. All right, come out of this state of confusion, man. All right, for those of you that have ears to hear. The book of Isaiah, the 52nd chapter, verse 1, awake, awake, put on thy strength, O Zion, put on thy beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city, for henceforth, all right, there shall no more come into thee the uncircumcised and unclean. Shake thyself from the dust, arise, sit down, O Jerusalem, loose thyself from the bands of thy neck, O captive daughter of Zion. So the dust represents a state of confusion. Right now, you still have Israelites that are in a state of confusion. All right, they're thinking that they're Caribbean. They're thinking that they're Trinidadian. They're thinking that they're from Tobago. They're thinking that they're Native American Indians. They're thinking that they're black. They're thinking that they're Mexican. All right, they're thinking that they're Spanish or Latino, and not understanding who they truly are. All right, they don't understand that they're Israelites. And with those names are associated certain cultures that you cling on to, all right, which brings upon you are the ways of death, all right, in regards to the things that you eat or the things that you celebrate. All right, not understanding that you're the Most High Heavenly Father's chosen people, a special people, a people that he have chosen over every other people upon the planet Earth. All right, but you refuse to let go your traditions. So those traditions are going to kill you, man. The traditions of Trinidad, although, a lot of them you adapted because of the things that you went through, But ultimately, they're not your true identity. They're not your true culture. Our culture is to be Israelites, the Most High Heavenly Father's chosen people. The book of Baruch, the 5th chapter, and beginning at verse 1, put off, O Jerusalem, the garment of mourning in affliction, and put on the comeliness of the glory that cometh from Yahweh forever. Put on this truth. Put on this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Shake yourself from the dust. Put off the confusion. All right, put off the ways of these other nations. Put off the ways of these heathens, their philosophy. All right, their identity, their way of life. Verse 2, cast about thee a double garment of the righteousness which cometh from Yahweh, and set a diadem on thy head of the glory of the everlasting. For Yahweh will shew thy brightness unto every country under heaven, for thy name shall be called of Yahweh, forever the peace of righteousness, and the glory of Yahweh's worship. Arise, O Jerusalem, and stand on high, and look about towards the east, and behold, the children gathered from the west unto the east, by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the remembrance of Yahweh, which is only going to be a remnant, a small number. Because in regards to the rest of Israel, they refuse to let go the ways of this world. They refuse to let go the ways of these other nations. So ultimately, we're going to eventually be set free, because right now we're not free. Yeah, you're free to have a carnival, or you're free to celebrate the illusion of freedom, but you're not truly free. All right, you're not truly free. And in the day when we're truly set free, all right, according to the book of Revelation, the 15th chapter, this is the song that we're going to sing. Revelation 15:1, and I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of Yahweh. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of Yahweh. Are you still subject unto the beast? Are you still subject unto this beast system? Are you still living in a world where they're getting ready to push on you not only the image of the beast, but they're getting ready to force you to receive the mark, the MOB. But you think that you're free. When the whole world was shut down because of this man's agenda, that shows you that you're still a slave. That shows you that you're still in captivity. All right, when you're free, you can do whatever you want. All right, but this man only offers you privileges. All right, and he offers you the illusion of freedom, but you're still a slave. Whenever you have to work for somebody in order to, have a way of life, you are a servant. You are a slave. All right, the rich elite banking families don't have to work for anybody. But the time is going to come when we're going to get the victory over them and their agenda, their way of life that they're pushing on the world, their philosophy that they're pushing on the world, and also the physical mark that they're going to try to push on the world for recognition of ownership. And the song that we're going to sing when we get this victory is the song of Moses. See, this is the true song that you're supposed to sing. All right, and we're going to celebrate, the new Passover. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of Yahweh, and the song of the Lamb, saying, great and marvelous are thy works, Yahweh power almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Now, when you go into the song of Moses, which can be found in Exodus, the 15th chapter, this was a song that was sung by the Israelites in celebration of being brought out of captivity, and getting freedom. This is the true song that we're going to sing. This is when we're going to absolutely be free from Esau Edom, because you're not free right now. You're still a slave. You're just a slave that thinks he's free. And that's the best slave. Exodus 15:1. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto Yahweh, and spake, saying, I will sing unto Yahweh, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horses and his riders hath he thrown into the sea. Yahweh is my strength in song and is become my salvation. All right, he is my power, and I will prepare him a habitation. My father's power, and I will exalt him. Yahweh is a man of war, and Yahweh is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host, all right, hath he cast into the sea. His chosen captives also are drowned in the sea, because Yahweh is getting ready to destroy, all right, the militaries of the earth, especially the military of Esau, Edom, that's going to rise up against us. All right, because we're living in America, and America is a spiritual Egypt. All right, so the rich elite banking families are looked at as the pharaohs. All right, the depths have covered them. They sink into the bottom as a stone. Thy right hand, O Yahweh, is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Yahweh, have dashed in pieces the enemies. In the greatness of thine excellency, thou hast overthrown them that rose up against thee. Thou sendest forth thy wrath, which consumed them as stubble. And with the blast of thy nostrils, the waters were gathered together. All right, the floods stood upright as a heap, and the depths, all right, were congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My lust shall be satisfied upon them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. Thou didst blow with the wind, the sea covered them, they sank as lead in the mighty water. Who is like unto thee, O Yahweh, among the gods? Who is like thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praise, doing wonders? Thou stretchest out thy right hand, the earth swallowed them. Thou in thy mercy hast led forth the people which thou hast redeemed, and hast guided them in the strength unto the holy habitation. So the Lord is getting ready to do the same thing. All right, when he gathered the children of Israel from the four corners of the earth where they were scattered into, the people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold on the inhabitants of Palestina. The dukes of Edom shall be amazed, and the mighty men of Moab. Trembling shall take hold upon them. All the habitations of Canaan shall melt away. Fear and dread shall fall upon them. By the greatness of thine arm, they shall be as still as a stone till thy people pass over. O Yahweh, till thy people pass over, which thou hast purchased. So there's getting ready to be another Passover. And in the kingdom of heaven, this is going to be a celebration, all right, that is held by the children of Israel, all right, over how they have triumphed over their enemies through Yahweh, their power, and through Yahweh Shai, their Lord and Savior, all right, who is coming back to physically redeem them out of the places where they were scattered into captivity and from the oppression and the captivity that they're held in. The book of Jeremiah 23:7, therefore, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that they shall no more say, Yahweh liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, but Yahweh liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country, and from all countries whither I have driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. So the point is that you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, all right, and you that are on the island of the Caribbeans and Trinidad and Tobago, all right, you Seminole Indians, all right, you so-called Mexicans, you Latinos, all right, you are all the true children of Israel. And the ways that you are holding on to in regards to these different cultures that you have adapted to and these languages that you speak, they're not originally your language or your cultures. Our culture is to serve Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. All right, that's our culture. All right, this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that is found within the scriptures, that's our culture. That's our way of life. All right, you have taken on the ways and the customs of these other nations that you have been scattered into. And those of you that are of the hopeful elect, you will shake that dust off. You will shake off that confusion, and you will come back into this truth, which is your beautiful garments, and you will put them on and you will wear them. All right, you will no longer wear the fashions of this world. All right, because the fashions of this world passeth away. The book of 1 Corinthians 7:31. And they that use the world as not abusing it, for the fashions of this world passeth away. And when you go into the word for fashion, you know, because, you know, even within certain fashions, it can be looked at as being a culture, right? The word there for fashion is schema. It says the habitus, all right, as comprising everything in a person which strikes the sense, the figure, the bearing, discourse, actions, matter of life, etc. All right, so it's like because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the habitus goes into like a person's ideas as well. It says a person's general constitution, especially physical build, the way a person of a particular background perceives and react to the world. So the way that you perceive and react to the world is the way that you've learned from Esau, Edom. French, you learned that from Esau, Edom. English, you learned that from Esau, Edom. You know, and a lot of the heritage, a lot of the culture, Salakia, that comes with that, you learn that from Esau, Edom. It's not your original culture. All right. So put off that confusion and come back to who you truly are, which are Israelites.